My name is Jay, and I am 30 years old. 3 years ago, I got married to Andy, who was 2 years older than me and worked as a lawyer from the very beginning. He showed deep professionalism towards, he was always willing to help, and I respected that. But there were other things that made me admire him. He was very competent and proficient in his work, but he also had a natural tenderness that most people did not possess. He was a good person by nature and quite attractive. What I found most impressive was his willingness to try and assist, particularly those around him. He didn't flaunt it, but he was clearly invested in looking out for others. That trifecta of professionalism, kindness, and relevant dedication is what made me admire him even more. I knew him when I was going through the toughest time of my life. I'd lost my best friend to cancer, and life had taken a turn. I thought I'd never be able to smile or be happy again, but he came along and made my life better. He brought color back into my life during those times. I used to go out often and drink a lot. Andy has a special talent for creating the most mind-blowing. He planned each date really well, and there were lots of lovely surprises, which showed he's creative and knows how to make people happy. The most important date was when he got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. We've been together for 2 years now, and he's been waiting for the right moment to tell me how much he loves me. It was a lovely evening with happy memories and the start of our happy married life. It was a significant moment in our relationship. As I got to know him better, there was one thing that really stood out. We were dancing together, and it felt like magic. He asked me to dance, and I said yes. I had no idea that something so simple would lead to such a great journey. From that moment on, we started dating, and it just kept getting better. Our relationship just kept on getting stronger and stronger. He was able to bring peace to the hurt. He reached into the very deepest part of me, and in ways that I would never even have considered before. He brought light and happiness. I would love to tell you the specific date that marked the day he asked for my hand in marriage. That is a day which I shall cherish always. It had certainly been one of the most enthralling days of my life. It was overflowing with sentiments and glamour. It made me feel like the luckiest girl in the world. I can't quite put my finger on how it happened, but at that moment, everything else disappeared. It was just the two of us, sharing a special moment. He looked at me with so much love and tenderness and said such kind words. I felt so appreciated. I remember every detail of that day, the place, the expressions on our faces, and everything in between. It was a major turning point in our lives as a couple. Let's get to the heart of the matter. He proposed in a beautiful place by the sea, next to a wall of red roses spelling out, "Will you marry me?" in vibrant red letters. It was unforgettable. I said yes without hesitation. The words hardly capture the beauty and magic of the moment. The sun was setting in a rainbow. The scene was bathed in a warm light, with the sweet roses in the air and us, dressed in white, looking like characters from a movie. It was a moment you could only believe happened in a movie or was a scene from one. The guys from the movies seemed like characters from a story about a loving couple. After the proposal, we started living together, and since his apartment was bigger and better, I moved in. His apartment was bigger and better. Everything was going great. We had a magical vibe between us. Love was always shown, even when we started living together. He and I still organize romantic and beautiful dates to keep the flame alive. And let me tell you about the sex. It was amazing. I have heard a lot about couples that lose the passion or the flame between them after starting to live together. That didn't happen to us. Our passion grew day by day until things took a turn after we got married. That's when things got really challenging. As a journalist, I interact with lots of different people, each with their own stories and views on various topics. This role has really transformed me into a more outgoing and communicative person, allowing me to connect with people from different backgrounds. I've also got to know my husband's friends quite well, and they've become friends of mine too. The conversations I have with them help me understand the world better and improve my ability to connect with others, both in my personal life and my career. I find it fascinating to listen to their experiences and perspectives, which often offer valuable insights that help me in my work as a journalist. The relationships I cultivate not only expand my social network, but also strengthen it. I've found that my sense of community is really important to me, both in my personal and professional life. My husband is the love of my life. He always took me with him when he went out with his friends. Every time he had to go to a party, I went with him. Now all of his friends were mine too. We used to have a lot of fun. We went to the beach together and organized travel and vacation together. Going on trips and adventures together was always very fun. During those times, he took me. John was a great guy. He was one of my husband's friends and often came on our trips. He started flirting with me and I liked it, but it wasn't a sudden thing. My husband had just been promoted at work, which should have made us happy, but it quickly became a situation where I felt more and more alone with the demands of his new position. He became consumed by work, often spending long hours at the office or bringing his responsibilities home when he was around. It felt like he was still miles away, glued to his computer or lost in phone conversations. The bond we once had started to unravel, overshadowed by the relentless pressures of his job and the growing emotional distance between us. Now, sometimes when our group of friends organized any party or any meeting, he would never come, but instead he would tell me to go. With his friends, who I also knew and who were also my friends, I found myself reaching out to my husband, hoping to get the romantic outings and special dates we used to have back on track. I suggested a variety of activities, from casual dinners to adventurous outings, reminiscing about the wonderful moments we had shared in the past. However, no matter how often I asked, he never seemed to be free. He always replied with the same excuse, saying he was swamped with work. He was always busy at work and never had any time to spare. This constant focus on his job was creating a widening gap between us and making it harder for us to connect like we used to. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, I couldn't shake the feeling of longing for the closeness we had lost, all because of the demands of his career. I even started flirting with John. However, as time passed, we started to hang out outside of the group. Our relationship changed slowly and we became friends. It felt real and promising, but I couldn't shake the feeling that our bond was turning into something deeper than just friendship. There was a clear connection between us and a spark that suggested stronger feelings. At the same time, I wondered if I was trying to escape the difficulties and challenges I was facing in my life and relationships. The situation is quite complicated because I started a romantic relationship with John, which ultimately led to me betraying my husband with his best friend. By that point in my marriage with Andy, our physical intimacy had significantly decreased. We were making love maybe once a week. The once vibrant passion we shared had faded over time, leaving our connection feeling more like a routine than a romantic bond. I started a romantic relationship with John, which ultimately led to me betraying my husband with his best friend. By that point in my marriage with Andy, our physical intimacy had significantly decreased. We were making love maybe once a week, if that. The once vibrant passion we shared had faded over time, leaving our connection feeling more like a routine than a romantic bond. In stark contrast, my relationship with JN was a completely different experience from the very start. There was an undeniable spark between us that reignited feelings I thought had long since faded with John. Every interaction was filled with excitement and intensity, making the emotional and physical connection we shared feel vibrant and alive. This new relationship awakened a longing within me that I hadn't even realized I was missing, highlighting the stark differences between my past with Andy and the thrilling dynamic I found with John when our relationship first blossomed. I felt an exhilarating and intense attraction to him each day after work. I would eagerly make my way to his apartment, where we would lose ourselves in each other's company and share passionate moments that felt almost tangible. There was something intoxicating about the secrecy and spontaneity of it all. The thrill of escaping the routine of daily life filled me with a rush of adrenaline that only deepened our bond. It's hard to describe the kind of passion that it was like a spark was ignited between us, and it felt electric and all-consuming. The intimacy we shared was unlike anything I had ever known. Each encounter felt like a journey to a blissful paradise, and then I'd return to the harsh reality of my life. Meanwhile, things at home were getting worse. They were becoming more strained and complicated with each passing day. In stark contrast, my time with JN seemed to grow richer and more fulfilling. It was creating a striking contrast that left me both exhilarated. John was my safe haven. I felt comfortable and secure whenever I reached out to my husband, hoping for his companionship and support. He was always caught up in his own responsibilities, leaving me feeling overlooked and isolated in those moments of loneliness. I naturally turned to John. He was a single man, living on his own, and had always been there for me when I needed someone to talk to or to confide in. My husband started showing signs of suspicion. He constantly bombarded me with questions. He started asking me a lot of questions when I left the house, which was a big change from before. He had never been like that before, wanting to know where I was going or what I was doing. It got to the point where he even asked to look through my phone, as if he thought there was something to find. It was strange and frustrating because it was so out of character for him. It was like he suddenly had time to be. I was paranoid about my actions, even though he had consistently neglected to prioritize our relationship and spend quality time with me. I know many of you will judge me, and you have every right to. The truth is, he didn't deserve the betrayal I inflicted on him. He was everything I had ever wanted in a partner, and my family loved him deeply too. Looking back, I see that I made a terrible mistake. It was the worst decision of my life. I made the mistake of cheating on him. I should have been more patient and given him the time he needed to deal with the challenges at work. I should have opened up and shared my feelings and concerns with him instead of taking the easy way out. Now I find myself sharing this painful story of how I completely shattered my own life. I lost everything that mattered to me and ended up utterly alone, with no one to turn to and nowhere to call home. I carry the consequences of my actions with me every day. I regret not doing the right thing when I had the chance. The situation reached a tipping point when it was one of my friend's birthdays, and he threw a party. We went there and we were playing a game with cards where, when one of us loses, it means doing a challenge. When I lost, my husband was asked to kiss JN. Without even thinking about it, I did it. I kissed John, so at a party I kissed his best friend, but the atmosphere changed and everyone fell silent. My husband came over to me and started applauding. He told me I knew that you both were cheating on me. I was shocked and didn't know what to say. I told him it wasn't true. We weren't cheating on him. It seemed like he knew it. He was trying to provoke us to show everyone what we had done. I told him this was just a joke and it wasn't true, but he kept saying that. He said he had proof we were cheating. This was just the end of our cheating. It was the end of the show. John made a bold statement to the whole group. He said it was true that I had been unfaithful to my husband. He said that in turn, he had betrayed his closest friend. There was a lot of disbelief in the room. Everyone was taken aback by such unexpected revelations. People gasped in shock as they processed the gravity of the situation. The atmosphere was tense as friends exchanged bewildered glances, struggling to comprehend how such a betrayal could occur among those they thought they knew so well. There was a heavy atmosphere of unspoken questions and the uncomfortable realization that trust had been shattered. What shocked me most was that my husband had actually recruited others to film my most vulnerable moment. It was like he'd planned this shock, making sure to capture the most humiliating parts of my life for everyone to see. The very next day, he shared the footage online, allowing anyone to watch this shocking act. It wasn't just about hurting me. It was a calculated move to manipulate how others viewed me, exposing to everyone who I really was and what I had really done. I never thought someone I loved could stoop so low to damage my dignity, and my reputation was damaged by the betrayal, not just because of the act itself, but because of the lengths he was willing to go to ensure I would be publicly shamed and ridiculed. To be honest, maybe I deserved it. I cheated on him with his best friend, which was wrong. The video was everywhere. My family started to call me and ask what it was. After making sure it was true, they said they didn't raise me like that, and they would never forget it. I was ashamed. When I got home after the party, my husband had already packed my things. He'd even hired someone to do it while we were at the party. I was in tears and didn't know what to do or say. I couldn't ask why, because I knew why I'd cheated on him and he'd taken revenge. I just told him I was sorry and that I didn't know what I was doing. It was like I'd lost my way, but I loved him. He looked me straight in the eyes and told me, he said that my actions were completely unforgivable. I was the worst person he had ever met in his life. As those words sank in, I saw the painful truth in what he said. I felt guilty and ashamed. It felt like a heavy weight had settled on my chest. I felt like I truly was the most despicable person in the world. I was overwhelmed by self-loathing. I felt loathing and regret for what I had done. I had never felt so low, so utterly defeated by my own choices and his judgment. He also pointed out that he had done me a huge favor by taking the time to pack all my things, and he insisted that I needed to leave his house. I had to leave immediately, but where would I go? I was sure my family wouldn't welcome me back. The distance between us had grown after what I did, and I knew it would take a long while for them to come to terms with everything that had happened. I needed to find forgiveness. It was a distant dream, something that might never come to fruition. The uncertainty of my future hung over me like a dark cloud. The idea of facing the world outside was overwhelming, and I was consumed by despair at the thought of being completely alone. I reached out to my best friend to see if I could stay at her place for a few days. A few days later, she said yes, which I was really grateful for. She's always been the one person who truly understands me and has supported me through tough times. During this difficult period, I also decided to take a few days off work because I just couldn't face anyone. I was overwhelmed with emotions and wanted to avoid interactions. However, I was hit with an unexpected blow when I received a dismissal letter telling me I had been fired. I couldn't help but think about what else could possibly go wrong in my life because of my poor choices. I found myself not only jobless, but also without a home, feeling completely lost with nowhere to turn. The company said the video that was going around online was damaging their reputation, which is why I was let go. I felt a huge weight of shame and pain. It was a harsh wake-up call, and I finally started to understand the consequences of my actions. What was I supposed to do now? How could I possibly fix the mess? I realized that I was in a situation where I felt completely powerless. There was nothing I could do to change my circumstances. All I could do was wait and see what would happen. Once things had calmed down, I would need to turn my attention to I needed to find somewhere to live and a job to support myself. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I had to wait out the storm. So I did. I'm now looking for a job and an apartment. I'm also trying to rebuild my life and heal myself by forgiving myself for what I've done. Please, everyone, go easy on me. I know I've made the biggest mistake of my life, but I'm still hoping to find some understanding among you. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. I just wanted to send you all a quick note to wish you the best. Jay here again. I know a lot of you have been asking for an update on my story, so I thought I'd share what's going on. First of all, I want to thank everyone who's been supporting me through this tough time. I'm doing okay, but I'm still struggling to forgive myself for what I did. I'm trying to heal, but it's a slow process. I haven't seen John since I sent him that message about everything being a mistake. I never saw him again after that. My husband sent the divorce papers to my old workplace by mistake. I hadn't been employed there for a while, so I got a call from my former boss. I was told there were important documents waiting for me. This unexpected turn of events has now thrust me into the midst of a divorce process, which has been anything but straightforward. The situation surrounding the divorce remains complicated and tumultuous. I find myself feeling quite overwhelmed and disorganized during this challenging time. Despite everything, I'm committed to working on myself. I'm trying to reflect on my experiences, learn from them, and become a better person as I navigate this difficult chapter of my life. I'd also like to say to everyone, to keep the people you love close and make smart decisions. Always communicate your feelings. Communication can resolve everything. Thanks for the time and your comments, guys. This is the end of my story. Thanks, Jay.